Well, good evening. How are you? All right. My name's Father Michael, and I'm a Jesuit. I teach sociology at Santa Clara University, and I also run an organization called the U.S. China Catholic Association. And in fact, I put out some of these brochures. You might see them. I'll put them on the table here in case you're interested in finding out more about our organization, what we do. But before I speak about this new initiative that we have, where I'd like to maybe involve some people from Cal, I just thought I'd maybe start by asking how many people, actually it looks like, well, we'll see, how many people here have either been to China or have relatives from China or came from China? So, all right, so quite a few, all right. So I myself first went to China in '91, all right, when I was a young Jesuit. And China had been opening up for about 10 years, 10, 12 years. But I remember when I was an undergrad, we were at Harvard, and there was this big buzz because we had our first Chinese international student. So there was one. There was one Chinese international student. But as you know, the United States has continued to open up, and more students have come here from China. When that one student came, everybody was very interested. This is a door opening. This is an opportunity to make friends with somebody from a very different background. This is an opportunity to create relationships across the Pacific, relationships that have been strained for so long. There was a lot of hope then. And as China continued to open up, as I said, I had that first opportunity to go to China in 1991. And as a young Jesuit, I was encouraged to continue in my own interest in China. I was a Chinese history minor. The Jesuits encouraged me to find out more about the history of the church in China, the history of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits in China. And I started to go to these conferences that were run by the organization that I'm now in charge of, the U.S. China Catholic Association. That was a great opportunity for people to come together who were concerned about supporting the church in China. And we have programs that do that, but we also have programs here in the United States. These include conferences that we have every 2 years to bring people together from both sides of the Pacific. We have study tours in China. And now we're trying to launch something new. The fact of the matter is, there are Chinese international students on our campuses throughout the United States. It's the largest group of international students in the United States. Before the pandemic, over 400,000 Chinese international students were studying in the U.S. at any one time. And as opposed to the day when that one student garnered a lot of attention, now I don't think we appreciate as much the miracle, the opportunity that we have here to really reach out and build friendships, build relationships. And this is especially true even on our Catholic campuses, where we have the opportunity to help people coming from an atheist background, an atheist country, overcome some of the prejudices that they have about religion by just reaching out and saying hello. And maybe inviting them to Mass or inviting them to learn a little bit about who we are and what we're about. And as I said, I have always found that when you meet people from different backgrounds and have the opportunity to learn from them and share with them, you also come to a great appreciation of who you are and what your own heritage is and why it's special and important. So as I said, we think this is a great opportunity for American Catholics and a great opportunity to reach out to people from mainland China. By and large, most of them are not Catholic. Some of them are Protestant, but most of them have only heard about or read about religion in their classes or heard negative propaganda in their society, or maybe they haven't heard anything at all. So again, it's an opportunity to reach out and build relationships. So we have these very simple exercises in mind, and things that people can do. If you have friends in class who are from China, you might want to ask, have you ever wondered what happens at a Catholic Mass? Would you like to come and visit, or would you like to come to the Newman Center for one of our activities? Just inviting people in. If you don't ask, people don't come. But we also have in mind certain programs that we could roll out. So, and we had a fellow in Chicago who works with us. His name is Paul Wong, great guy, and he ran a series of talks just on like, what is this crazy thing called Catholicism? They invited Chinese international students too, so they could ask the questions that they kind of wondered about, and we could bring in speakers to do something like that. We could, students here could invite their colleagues, their friends, to come to a book circle and just read a book together and share thoughts and different perspectives. And we also do things, like I said, we run study tours to China, and maybe students from Cal would like to go on a study tour with us, maybe even visit for where some of their friends come from. But we run study tours like no other study tour. We don't just go to the touristy sites. You get to see the part of China that's not always highlighted, the Catholic part, the history that goes back 450 years. It's an amazing history in China. So anyway, the reason I'm here is just to explore possibilities with people who might be interested in doing some kind of outreach, working with us, and seeing what we could get going for maybe next fall. And we just explore possibilities and move forward. So I'm going to just turn the podium over to CY. Would like to go next?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good. Hello, I'm CY. I spoke to some of you, but not all of you. My name is CY. It stands for Chia Yang, so we'll go by CY. I'm a Jesuit. I'm currently studying at Jesuit School of Theology, just next door from UC Berkeley campus. And I am originally from Taiwan. I moved to US about 15 years ago, initially for grad school, and I worked before I became a Jesuit. So I was really, really, really impressed by what I saw. Like when I came here, saw the crowds coming out from Mass, so many people, young people, and they moved here to have dinner together, and it was really fun. And I was even more impressed when I see different cultures represented at different tables. I kind of like talked to maybe 3 different tables, and the people are talking about where they're from, and not only the international cultures, but also the cultures represented in the US. So I was just telling Brent that I lived in the East Coast of the United States before for many years before I came here. And it was unreal for me to see such a strong Asian representation here in the East, West Coast. So, and it's even within this country, the culture is so different. And I really appreciate that diversity. Just that giving people the place that, I can be myself. And I think UC Berkeley is that place that people feel like they can be themselves. So, as a Chinese, Taiwanese Catholic, I was raised Catholic. The first time I really think about like what it means to be a Chinese Catholic is actually not in Taiwan, not in the US. Was when I was still studying college in Taiwan, I made my trip to Rome for World Youth Day in year 2000. Yeah, I kind of gave away my age. So there, and that first time I was like so excited. I'm a Catholic, I want to talk to Catholic youth from around the world. And I was practicing my English. My English was not very good at that time. And I'm still working on my language now. But I was practicing my English. I want to talk to different people from different countries. And I realized that Chinese Catholic is a really small population in the Catholic world.
Wait. There are more Chinese Catholics than there are.
Yeah, that's true. Taiwanese.
Oh.
It's a very small. And I feel like I guess it's not represented. Sometimes in the worldwide event, I don't feel like that was well represented. Yes. And so, I start to think about what it means to be a Chinese Catholic. And then I start to teach myself the history. Because I went to church every day, every Sunday, and I didn't think of that until I had the chance to really reflect upon that. And I realized, wow, that's a long history. Even, I mean, there are missionaries coming to China in the 16th, 17th century, and way before then, actually, there was Christianity presence in China too. So, and it become really meaningful, like who I am as a Chinese, Taiwanese guy. So as I become a Jesuit, I feel like that even becomes stronger. Like what does that mean to me as a Jesuit and with this special cultural heritage and understanding the culture. And so before I moved to JST, I was in San Francisco working in one of our universities there, University of San Francisco. And I work with the students, and many of them actually Chinese, international students. And I start to think that, like, what can we do to, given that they have the opportunity, we have the opportunity to host them in a Catholic institution and have the freedom to pursue, intellectual pursuit, but I want to put the religion also in that environment to say, oh, you can also think about something is cultural, is historical, but also religious. So I was thinking about how can we do that, and I was thinking I speak Chinese, so is that enough, And I know a little bit Chinese culture. So we kind of brainstorm different ways engaging them. So I would say that maybe just my own reflection, there are two ways of reaching out to them. One is going in to them, and second is invite them out of it. So a lot of times in the context of USF, University of San Francisco, a lot of Chinese students, their circle networks primarily around their fellow Chinese international students. They don't, maybe a few of them will branch out to beyond the Chinese circle, but most of them stay in that circle. So a lot of efforts I was trying to make is get into that circle by, getting myself a WeChat account. Right, and start sending messages. Can I get on your chat group? Can I participate in your conversation? Right, and then, and also I get to know a few individuals, Chinese students, and I would take them to lunch. And usually food is the way, very important element of Chinese, their social life. So we circulate information about the best Chinese restaurant in the area, or sometimes they want to branch out, like America and different cuisines, and San Francisco's great for that, such a great restaurant scene. So we kind of started from there. And also, as I was engaging them, I realized that there's actually the strong desire for them to reach out beyond their Chinese circle, because it's not, it's the parents really spend a lot of money for them to come to U.S. and I think a lot of them have the interest. I want to do a little beyond that. I want to have a little different American experience. So they do want to reach out to beyond their Chinese circle. But sometimes the challenge is there. So then the question is, what can I do to help them pursue the life they want, the kind of experience they want? So that's my second point about bring them out of it. So how do I create a space that is easy for them to come, to join, while they can still make friends with the people they desire to be with and the experience they desire to have? So I started to organize events this is a great example. I think you guys are doing a really good job. But we try to do something similar to this, but with a focus with Chinese students and non-Chinese. A lot of them are international, but from different cultures, and some domestic students. And we start off providing food, and we have TV, and people would share their interest in different cultures, different like pop culture, what they're following, and So we'll play the music they want, and we have different themes every week, and people will come to talk about the shows they're following, the song, the artists they love, or they're getting, sometimes organically, they will go into some conversations about different themes like dating. Young people love talking about that. If you, and also something really real about how to navigate the US life. How do you, from how to understand the steps of what you need to know to do well in school, how to find a job, how to find an internship as an international person. It's actually not that easy, right? Because beyond, I mean, it's this day and age, looking for a job has been challenging, but even more difficult for international students, and because they have to go through more hurdles beyond just the cultural language barriers. So we invited alumni, international, also was people who were international students to share their experience. So in a way, it's catered to their needs. And as a religious person, sometimes that conversation can happen. So as I'm introducing myself, and the question will ask, oh, so who are you? Why are you doing this? And and then that's the opportunity for me to have that conversation with them. So that has been really fulfilling for me. And so these are just a little bit of my own personal experience engaging with Chinese students. And I hope this is a conversation starter, because I know some of you are missionaries here, and this is your mission to preach the gospel, to evangelize. And I believe that you have a lot to share, maybe not specifically to Chinese students, or maybe to Chinese students. But I think that I hope that I can learn from you all too today in our conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Siwa.
Yeah.
Aaron, why don't you come up and say a few words?
Oh, sure. So my name is Aaron Bohr. I'm a deacon here at Newman Hall. I'm a student at JST, Jesuit School of Theology, preparing for priestly ordination, which will be in June. And I will be teaching high school at St. Ignatius College Prep in Chicago. And one of the reasons why I'm really excited about going there is because there is a significant Asian American student population there. And I have really enjoyed being in the Bay Area with the multicultural ministry. I suppose my sub-niche ethnically is I'm Chinese Jamaican American. So my mother is 100% Chinese from Jamaica. My family has been in Jamaica since 1904.
Wow.
And they are originally from just northeast of Hong Kong. Hong Kong, of course, was a British colony. Jamaica was a British colony, and so the British recruited Chinese to labor in Jamaica, and then many of those laborers stayed and opened up shops, and so my family came over probably to join other relatives, and they ran a supermarket. My grandfather was born in China, and he arrived in Jamaica in 1921. So my family has strong roots in Jamaica, but also very strong Chinese ties, right? Because my grandfather being from China himself. And so I grew up, and my dad is from here in the Bay Area, of German and English, Irish, Scottish, British ancestry. My dad's side had lived in California since the gold rush. So they were pioneers from the East Coast, and then from Germany, it was the last set of immigrants to arrive. So I grew up with these stories about migration and immigration, and so became very interested in the history of both the history and the culture of being in a diaspora. So I'm part of the Chinese Jamaican diaspora. One of the interesting things about Jamaican Chinese is that almost all of them are Catholic. And so when you go to church in Jamaica, you see many Chinese. When they open up their mouths, they speak Jamaican. And so, you know, those are my people. In Hakka, we say Chiganin, which is our people, my people, right? And so those are, you know, we call each other, you know, Chiganin, you know, my people. And so I grew up in this really multicultural context. I was born here in California, raised in Minnesota, and there are not very many Chinese Jamaicans in Minnesota. So I grew up always feeling in the minority, right? The only one, and the only one, you know, and I'm the only one in my family who's half white, half Chinese, and so just kind of growing up with that, and so I have really felt an interest in the power of these relationships, community relationships, identity, and how in my family, how the Catholicism also was a way in which we maintained our Chineseness. And so, for example, going to the cemetery and doing all of the traditional Chinese ancestor veneration. That was something that I did an oral history of the Chinese in Jamaica, and many of them said, well, we became Catholic because we could do that. We could still be Chinese and still be Catholic. And the other interesting thing is, you know, in Chinese culture, the big question is how to be a good person. And so they said, well, we became Catholic because we found a response to how to be a good person. And so these are all ways in which, you know, through my personal reflection and bringing that into as a Jesuit, reflecting on the power of relationships, power of connection, and the power too of, you know, ancestral ties. I think one of the really poignant pieces about a year ago when these cases of anti-Asian hate were really increasing, one of the pieces of advice that an Asian American psychologist gave was lean into the ancestors, right? Lean into the experience of the ancestors. And so that is certainly something that I think is part of what we would call the communion of saints. These relationships, and so I think in my own life, having these just the ethnic ties, I still have family in Hong Kong, and also the cultural ties, and having that as kind of an entry point into working with Chinese people from China, going to China. And just having, you know, going through that door, we Jesuits like to say, you know, we go in through their door and then they come out ours. And so just, I think that just the importance of respect for culture and for tradition, and how we as Christians can incarnate that.
Very nice. I didn't know all that. I did know about the Jamaican mafia, though, the Jamaican Chinese mafia. So we've exchanged on that because, interestingly enough, so I was telling Jake, I did Chinese studies at Indiana University for a couple of summers, and when I was there, I met this young woman who comes from a Chinese Jamaican mafia family. You know, they all know each other, and she kind of invited me in. We've been friends since. But anyway.
Yeah, in my community, the first question is, who's your father, who's your mother?
Mm-hmm.
And then inevitably, well, that's Jamaica is a very small place. So.
Anyway, well, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, good. Maybe we could get to know some of the people in the room. You just go around. Would you say who you are? Say hello.
My name's Jake. What else would you like us to say? I work here at Newman as a missionary with Focus.
Yeah, I'm sure probably everybody knows you, but anyway, a little redundant, but they get things going, and that way I get to know everybody.
Absolutely.
Hello, my name's Andrew.
So, they're pretty, it's a Confucian-based culture, yeah, maybe even more so than China at this point.
Hi, I'm Bori. I grew up going to Newman and I was also a student here, but I graduated and I also know Father Michael, so I heard about this. But I work here as faith formation. I would say director, but I'm doing faith formation for kids here.
I'm Joy. I'm a third year at Cal, and I'm original from China. I was international at once, but last semester I just got my green card, and my parents are here with me. So
Oh, congratulations!
I still feel I'm an international student. Thank you.
Well, where are you from?
Like cities?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
Okay, Fujian.
Fujian. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, wonderful. Okay.
My name is Wan. I also original Chinese. My hometown is Jiangxi. I'm a doctor student and come here for 1 year visit.
Awesome.
Doctoral student doing studies in Christian spirituality.
Yeah.
So and you became Catholic in China, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm Maria, and let's see, what should I say? I am attending a mass, a Chinese group, and in El Cerrito, St. John the Baptist Church,
Mm-hmm.
and we met Father Tao. He come and help, celebrate mass with us. He's so friendly, and that's why we all come here. So I used to work at Berkeley for about 9 years. Then I moved to work for OP, Office of President in
Oh.
Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm now retired, but I always travel to China. In the past several years, I go back every year. I love the sceneries there, and I love going to China. So that's why I want to hear more about it. And what can we do to help out?
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
And I'm Jimmy, Maria's husband, and I was raised in Hong Kong, and now retired in the U.S. And we also love to travel in China. And traveling in China, we went to church in China. We see so many faithful, Chinese, all packed in the church. Just wonder, how we can reach out to the Chinese people that in the United States to, into the Catholic faith.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come.
Sure.
My name is Grant. I used to be a student here in Berkeley, but recently graduated, part of the Newman grads group here.
Uh-huh.
I'm third generation Chinese on my dad's side, and I'm also Japanese. I'm half Chinese, half Japanese. Interesting combo, actually. Historical.
Cross a few divides there.
Yeah. My mom's from Japan, so
Uh-huh.
yeah, I'm more in touch with my Japanese side, just because my mom spoke to me in Japanese. That was my first language. And went to Saturday school, but I've never been to China, but I would really love to go.
Do you write kanji?
Yeah, I'm third grade level now, probably.
I'm almost
I can
there.
still come.
And just to add on, and so Grant converted in college, so didn't grow up in a religious
Yeah.
family. So yeah, Chinese side is not Catholic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, thanks for joining us. So my name is Darcy, and I'm in my last year here at Berkeley. And yeah, I'm currently going through RCA with Newman, and so Father just encouraged us to join today. So here I am.
Well, people who are going through the sacraments and everything, especially later in life, this is not just because you chose to do that, you see things with fresh eyes that sometimes people miss.
Thanks.
So it's great that you're here. And I just want to invite the two of you to say who you are.
Oh, sorry. Hi everyone, I'm Sam. I think I know a couple of people here, but I've been at Berkeley for almost 5 years. So I'm a student here. I'm part of the community, really enjoy it, and I'm just here to learn. I'm a first generation Mexican American, so I'm sure that a lot of whatever I'm going to learn today see it in my own culture, so that's why.
Uh-huh. Excellent, thank you. So Sam, appreciate it very much.
Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca, or Becky. I've been in Newman, in the community Newman for a year, and moved to the Bay after Sam and I got married last January. Yeah, and I was invited to be here, happy to see everyone and meet new faces and learn a little more about Chinese Americans or Chinese coming over and just being that welcoming home. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for coming. You know, Aaron said something. I just wanted to. It struck me, and I just wanted to pick up on it. You said, you know, in Chinese culture, it's important to be a good person. That's part of the quest to be a junzi, to be to cultivate your humanity, and that's also part of why the Jesuits were so successful in China. It's because of this thing called humanism. When the Jesuits, the first Jesuits who went to China were Jesuits who were educated in the Renaissance. I mean, it was coming out of the Renaissance period, and that humanism, getting in touch with our human roots, what does it truly mean to be human? That was what the Renaissance was all about, exploring our humanity. And they brought that questioning and their reflections on that to China. So one of the most important, one of the Jesuits who made the first breakthrough in China was this Italian Jesuit, Matteo Ricci. And he wrote a book on friendship in which he translated all these maxims on friendship from the West into Chinese. And that really was a place for dialogue, to reflect on, you know, what does it mean to be a human being in the world, and what does it mean to share with another? And I think that question now emerges as all the more important in an age that's so dominated by technology and control and manipulation and systems and power. I'm a sociologist, so I study all that stuff. I love it. But anyway, that quest of what does it mean to be truly human is important. And our office is just up the way on Addison Street, and we have. And Wang Qi lives there. And we normally have, when there are pandemics, we have a whole group of about 8 or 9 grad students from China. He's like one of the first Catholics, because most of them are not. But I would have dinner with them. We sit around the table and I say, so you can practice your English, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. And since I'm a sociologist, I know a little bit about Western culture, Chinese culture, we talk about all kinds of things. But one of the fellows afterwards, and we almost never spoke about religion unless they really wanted to. I kind of slipped it in sometimes, but we talk about family and values, career, and then one of the fellows said, when I go back to China, I'm going to become baptized. And he did. He lived in Hengshui, because he says, you know, you talk about human values. You know, it's so missing in our world. And I don't know if you know this, but there was a sociologist from China. His name is Yang Fenggang, Yang is his last name. But anyway, he teaches at Purdue now, and he's been studying trends in China when he was allowed into China. He became a convinced Christian, and he's not allowed back in anymore. But as a sociologist, he was studying the trends in China when it comes to religion. And he predicted back in 2013 that by 2030 or 2035, China would become the largest Christian nation on earth. And that's because, I mean, sociologists always look at trends, but trends change. But that's because so many young people in China are turning to Christianity because it answers questions that nobody's even asking in their society. When you focus just on career or, well, now Xi Jinping is trying to widen the conversation and bring in more human values. But there was a curiosity, an opportunity to grow that they found in Christianity that they didn't find in other places. Mostly, though, it was not Catholics. It's Protestants who were spreading the faith. And we Catholics tend to sit back, we're very institutional, and we wait for people to come in. But that's why we're here to say, well, maybe we should do something to share the good things that we have. How could we invite people in? So this is just the beginning of a conversation, and I'm wondering if you have any thoughts. We have some ideas for programs that we've done at other universities, but if people are interested in this, maybe we could also continue the conversation a little bit later. But I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts about that? Or I think you both mentioned a Bible study that you belong to. Is it a Chinese language Bible study?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I've been attending a Bible study over in San Francisco, Holy Name Church, over 10, 15 years.
Holy Name with
Wednesday
Bishop Wong.
Yes.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right. Did you ever think about inviting students from USF to come over there, or students from San Francisco State, or do any outreach? Anybody do that?
No, this is only for the Chinese community
Uh-huh.
Bible study group.
Yeah.
So at that time, Sister Esther Ling, she was there and leading us, and the group has been expanded. But then now she's gone back to Hong Kong for retirement. But this group become bigger because of the Zoom session.
Oh.
More and more people are joining from all over the area.
Oh.
Wonderful. I don't know. Anybody have any ideas about what we should do to reach some of the Chinese students who are here?
I kind of maybe I have a question for you, Father Ivan. I know we have student groups at Newman that meet. Do we have a Chinese student group? I feel like maybe not.
No, surprisingly, we don't have because we've had Korean groups, we've had Indonesian groups,
Right.
but Filipino groups. But
Yeah,
somehow
so
the Chinese,
some Asian American groups, but not Chinese
not
speaking.
Chinese,
So,
not Chinese.
so there's also international house where a lot of the international students live. So, I don't know what I'm saying. Go out there and fire or something. But Father Ivan, kidding. You have lots on your plate.
I'm thinking Grant.
Trust me, he also has lots on his plate. But we're called to serve, right? So that's why we're here chatting. So just those were two things, student groups, churches do, and that could be a great venue. And then also, I know there's an international house here at Berkeley that really does have a lot of international students. I think Cal does have a pretty international student population. So just wanted to offer those two thoughts.
That's very good. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
I know that from USF, I have information from USF. About nearly 9% of the total student population are international students from China.
Oh, wow.
So I wonder if you have the data here at UC Berkeley.
I think it's available somewhere.
I'm going to look it up.
Well, I know that there are times when I can walk for 15, 20 minutes to a campus and only hear Mandarin.
Yeah. So it's the large
Is it a
Chinese international student population over at USF.
There is, talking about student groups, most campuses have a Chinese Students and Scholars Association, CSSA.
Right.
All right. I'm sure they have one here.
Mhm.
But what about inviting them to have a joint event where they could meet each other, Newman and CSSA sort of a thing? Just kind of an outreach, say hello, joint event. That might be a thing to do. And I bet a lot of Chinese don't know the story of the Catholicism in China.
I bet a lot of Catholics don't know that.
Yeah, probably a lot of a lot of when I talk in parishes, about our work in the church in China, and I tell them, there was the first Catholic church was built in Beijing before there were any churches in the 13 colonies, because there weren't any 13 colonies. All right.
Yeah.
So.
And even Christianity came to China in the 5th, 6th century.
7th century.
7th century, yeah. So it's very early on. So there's that long history, and the population continues. Yeah. So and Father Michael was mentioning now the Chinese Christian population is continuing to grow and is very fast. So it's and especially one thing I want to note is that maybe some of the folks who have experience being Christian in China can share more. But because there's the context right now, political, social context right now, it's difficult for people to evangelize in China. And while we have them here in the US, and that environment especially, I think just as a Christian missionary, that's something to think about. Like, how can we support that? It's a great opportunity for evangelization.
But you know, even if you don't necessarily make someone a Catholic, you know, just to reach out in friendship, you just transform how they think about another, you know, religion, the church, and so forth. If you put a human face on it, and that's really important. We need to do much more of that as Catholics, I think, in our world. Is to
Yeah, I have a question. Just like, because I mentioned that I was really impressed by the work you guys are doing. Like, just seeing
Focus.
the young
Or
people
focus
coming to
on-
mass.
yeah.
Maybe focus. I don't know which department, which groups are, should receive the credits. But the mass is wonderful. Seeing the young people coming out of mass and then moving here and enjoying the time together. And I think a lot of people told me that their first year, the campus won't make friends. And this is a great space for that. And I wonder, anything you will share how do you bring these people together, and how do you start?
So I think one of the things, community was a big part with my deeper conversion, in my identity as a Catholic, especially in college. And so I think that is the place in which I lean forward in a lot when it comes to evangelizing and when it comes to ministry. And I think the Lord's really good in then placing me here at Berkeley to be a missionary, because I think a place like Berkeley, where it is ultra competitive, a place like the Bay Area where it is ultra competitive, showing people, even if they don't believe in a God, that this sense of altruism does exist, and that here's a place where you can go where you don't have to feel like you're competing, a place where you can go where you don't where you can feel a genuine connection with others. And I think that's some of the things I try to tell people who I'm just trying to get their foot in the door here, when we're tabling on campus. You don't have to be Catholic, I'll be like, oh, I'm not religious. You don't have to be religious. We welcome people who are not religious, encourage. And I think I'm just always very moved by, one of my friends here, he is a Chinese convert. He originally came to Protestantism because he moved in with a family when he came to the U.S. for high school. He moved in with a Protestant family, and he was just confused why this family was doing things just out of their goodwill. He was like, wait, you guys have to be getting something from me, and so he basically said that sense of altruism was just so big for him that oh, there are people here who are doing these things because they love this guy named Jesus. That's interesting. I want to learn more about this guy. And just fell in love with the idea of Christianity. Fell in love with the person of Jesus Christ. And then I think Protestants really have a leg up in this realm of how do we reach young people? How do we And so Focus is honestly modeled after a lot of the work that Cru does. And so I think just showing people that there is a Catholic presence here on campus, I love what one of you had said it about going out. We can't wait for these people to come in. We can't just expect students are gonna walk by this big concrete building in Wayne College and say, oh, that looks like an interesting place.
Some people have.
Some people have.
They never came back.
Yeah, and then they're like, oh, okay. What is this? So, but going out, and I think really just being bold with those Catholic values and not like hiding behind them to make them like more palatable to other people, but of like, yeah, we do this out of goodwill. We do this because of this God who came down to earth and died for us. And like sharing the gospel message with them in a really authentic and bold way.
Yeah, like really that personal interaction, engagement, and that's like that friendship, like that, right? Father Michael were talking about that. Was the wisdom? I mean, it's a wisdom like from the Christian faith. Like we just start by making friends, having conversation, and know who you are, and then you are, you know, you're Christian is part of your identity, but you're also who you are. So all that's together and presenting that.
Right. Otherwise, it like comes off as proselytizing to people, and just like, oh, I want you to like join this cult. And it's like, oh no, like this person is my friend, and they like want the very best.
I love that.
Well, you mentioned something about tabling, so I want to raise, tell me a little bit about that. So do you have, is there always tabling, or what's that all about here?
Yes. So it is a presence in which we've tried to make a little bit greater here on campus. I mean, you kind of have to figure out how to stand out in a certain way because.
Like, is there a plaza where they have tables?
Yes.
all the time?
So Sproul. There's just a line of tables there, and like basically all the orgs on campus are there flyering for something, fundraising for something.
Is that 24/7 or is that
Yeah,
a
the
certain
whole
day of
year.
the week?
The whole
or-
year. I mean, it kind
Not
of.
not at 2 a.m. Not 24/7.
Okay, but the 7 part.
Yeah.
Like you walk by and you're just there.
Kind of during the weekdays.
During the weekdays, okay.
Did you
Yeah,
guys
Andrew have something?
So I'm part of this non-Catholic Christian group, and they're very successful in reaching out to the campus. So they do tabling as well, and they usually have like a chalkboard and some kind of like existential question, like why is there suffering in the world? Do you think a good God could allow bad things to happen? And so it's all these like questions related to apologetics, and they invite students to give their answer, and then they say, oh, here we're having an event at our place, and there's going to be free dinner there, and so there's kind of that attraction there. Would you be interested in joining? And then, I guess from these outreaches and interactions, they're very big on presenting Christianity as an intellectual faith that can answer a lot of the biggest questions of life. And they have a very strong sense of community. And I think that really reaches out to a campus where people are just focused on careers and all these worldly pursuits.
That's really helpful. That's really helpful. Thank you very much. That's how I got my vocation too. There was a Jesuit booth, and they had this chalkboard, and there was a question: what's your favorite Scotch? Scotch. Something right in. I'm kidding. But this way of grabbing people, that's really important. And I think this is something that we Catholics are not as good at, because we have whole books of theology, and we don't always focus on those deep existential questions that really are at the core of what it means to be a Christian. We live those questions. So, kidding aside, that we don't do that as much. And I think even priests, we learn years and years of theology, and sometimes we bury the simplest insights with tons of footnotes and things. So,
but I heard like two important insights here. Like one is really creating space. Just come here, meet people, make friends. We have good space, fun, come relax. And there's also another approach is asking good questions, right? Like asking, and that together, I think that's like, there's no one or two, like they come together, but you bring people together, get to know who you are, and then start have the opportunity to go a little deeper, right? That's great.
Two quick things. I'm not sure if Andrew were you talking about like Christian groups on campus?
Yeah, Grace
Yeah.
Point, they have like 3
Oh,
different
Grace
fellowships.
Yeah. I guess to add on to that, there are a lot of Christian groups on campus, and I've talked to just a lot of people who will just like walk up to me. I'm like sitting down at the Glade. Oh, well, I can explain the Glade, but it's just like a little like park in the middle of the campus, okay? Everyone sits there, loves it when it's sunny, they're happy. It's a good time to approach people. So lots of times when I'm sitting on the Glade, okay, maybe it's happened like 4 times in my experience at CAP, someone will kind of like be like, hi, you know, do you have a second? And then I don't know what they'll say. I don't think they start with like, do you believe in God? But I've definitely had multiple of these conversations. Swear, 100% always Christian. A lot of times I'm like, oh, I'm actually like, you know, like part of the Catholic Church, but I've never ran into a Catholic doing that, you know, of course. But they're just like, if you look up UC Berkeley Christian groups, like, I swear there are like 100. I kid you not. And so that's a thought. So a lot of them I feel like don't come to the Catholic Church or go to the Christian group. And I've even seen, like, I've thought about it, free Korean barbecue Tuesday night. I kid you not, Korean barbecue, okay?
That almost stole me away from the Catholic Church freshman year.
No, he actually went to one of the events.
I got a little freaked out though. The Palestine leader texted me over and over and over.
And so it's a balance. And then next thing, y'all. So I did look it up, and so essentially it looks like in fall 2021. So this past fall actually, the Chinese student international population made up 37% of our international population. So definitely like our highest. The most international students that we have do come from China, and then that number was close to 3,000. So
Wow.
just some information.
Very good. Andrew?
The Christian group that I was talking about, they actually have something called visiting scholars, and where they reach out to international Chinese students. And even when these Chinese students, or when they go back to China, during the quarantine, they still have like Zoom Bible studies with them. And I think they only had like one person who made what they call a salvation decision. So it wasn't like massive amounts of conversions, but it seemed like they were doing a good job at retaining the people they did attract with it. The Bible studies and the apologetics and the sense of community. I think that's what a lot of the Chinese students were looking for, a sense of friendship and community.
Well, you plant the seed and you begin a process, but people have to find their own journey. You know, if you go back to a country where nobody else in your family or among your friends is Christian, it might take a while for you to figure out where does that fit into your life and how do you move forward if you really feel called by Jesus. Like I say, that's a conversation that each individual has with God. You know, at the depths of at the core of their being. And I don't know that you measure things by, you know, who signs on the dotted line. But I do think, I sometimes listen to Protestant radio services. I have to drive between San Francisco and Santa Clara. And I have to say, you hear people just talking about their faith in very personal, important ways. And I don't always encounter that in the Catholic Church because we talk about theology and ideas sometimes. Sometimes we talk about our personal experience. We're not as good about that. And that also engages people, I think. Yeah, it's a story. It's a journey. It's a journey. And what people in that group are doing are accompanying others on that journey of life, that journey of faith. So, but anyway, I don't want to take. Oh, Joy.
It's okay. I actually have quite opposite thoughts as part of an international student view. I'm not sure the group we were talking about was IUSM or anything like that. Yeah. Okay. Because the lack of like actively pulling people into Catholic was actually the thing that attracted me into Catholic rather than Christianity. Because I feel they were selling things. My usual word like probably inappropriate, but English is my second language, so I should be understood. I was living in Unit 2, like literally 3 minutes walk away from here, and that was a great place because it was so close to here. And the other side was People's Park, but that's another story. And my RA, which was residence assistant or anything like that, she was a junior and we were freshmen, and she was like kind of guardian or leader of us. And she actually goes to Newman And during our like monthly talk, we were talking about something about the religion, and she introduced me to Bible studies here, to like RCIA, and the student dinner, of course. Yeah, and that was really, because I don't feel like she was selling or pushing me into. It was like me asking for some help, and then she was offering that. Sorry, I'm jumping like back and forth off topic. And I
But not a lot of salesmanship.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And the CSSA at Berkeley was called BCSSA. And then, but people there and most international students from China don't think anything related to religion was cool. And they have this repulsion against it. And they only do fun things and to socialize, especially the popular ones, and maybe get some free food from the Christian groups, but never learn about anything they taught, even though they had like assigned mentors from the group. And
Assigned mentor from which? From the Christian,
From the
the Protestant.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and they do like Bible studies once a week, but that's not so fun.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's another group called CPU, China People Union. They were part of BCSA, but then they fought each other like really hard a few years ago, and then they just became independent. But they were even more popular, I guess. Like they consider themselves popular, and even like hated talking about religion or anything. Yeah. And most international students from China, at least from whom I've met, they like doing things that white kids or like popular kids do, but except for being Catholic or like Christian. So that was kind of weird, but this mentality just exists there.
Is the Protestant group like Chinese group or
Which
a
one?
the Protestant, like you mentioned that there's a Christian group
Oh,
reaching out to Chinese. Are they also Chinese or
Yes,
they're
they are
all Chinese?
most of them, and they host a lot activities for maybe Thanksgiving, like Christmas, and they invite people to their house, and they have parties, food, gift exchange, just like making international students like, I don't know how to say it, but they just, want them to feel welcomed, and kind of try to have them absorb some Christian studies, but I'm not sure how much they were taking in.
So interesting. This is very good to hear that, because from the outside it looks like they're very successful and we're not doing enough. But maybe we shouldn't be too pushy.
Not for me. That's not for me.
Yeah, I'm from New York. It wouldn't work for me either.
But my question, like when I work at USF, I have encountered Chinese students who want to hang out only with fellow Chinese students, and there are some, not a lot, some of them want to branch out. They want to make friends with people from other cultures or U.S. domestic students. What's your sense of like the Chinese students here? Do they prefer still hanging out within the Chinese circle, or some of them actually want to make friends outside?
I think they would like to meet people out from different cultures, but they are used to hang out only with Chinese people and feels more comfortable. And people who hang out, well, it still depends on like whether those guys from other cultures seem to be popular kids. They're kind of like high school, but still work in college. And they go to frat if they have joined maybe frat of the popular kids, like how they found it, and they were from like they are American kids. They seem to be like those Chinese kids who joined them seem to be more popular. But I don't know how they feel.
Because I was thinking that just the dinner right now, it's a great opportunity for Chinese students, of course, like any students, but for Chinese students to come and hang out and make friends. If they want to branch out a little outside of their Chinese circle, just come here, have food, and then maybe that could be a introduction, just bringing them in, and we can think of ways to continue the engagement.
I think that's a good note to end on, maybe, because I think I got the signal when that my computer battery died, that maybe we should be wrapping up a little bit. But maybe what I'd like to do is ask if we could continue the conversation in this way. Think about things, and I'm going to also give out my business card. And then, if you have any thoughts or you want to keep in touch, just drop me a quick email. How about that? All right, and or.
Oh, what you can show us.
Very good. You would have my you know me, he was in my office. Would you like this? I work on board on another completely different project. Whoops. Thank you, Sam. Okay, very good. Thank you, Becky. All right, Jake. This is the Chinese way to do it. Two hands. All right. So I really appreciate you taking out farm. I thought we would just talk for a half hour and get a little things lighted, but this has been very helpful for me. It's wonderful to hear your enthusiasm and your ideas and some realism too. So this is very balanced and very helpful. And maybe we could get a few more people together and do just some simple outreach and think about some ideas. You know, I'll continue to talk with Father Ivan, and we'll move this forward. All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michael. And thank you all for coming here. And yet.